Good afternoon, everyone. I hope all of you are safe and doing well. This side Anmol, part of marketing team at Inspire One Technologies. In today's unprecedented situation, business leaders have to e-lead their way to upskill, engage, and manage the workforce. No formulaic approach exists, and organizations continue to struggle as well as discover best practices on what can make their workforce stick and stay productive from home. Our panelists for today's virtual panel discussion are Ms. Shilpi Mishra, who is the Senior Executive Vice President and Head, Risk Containment Unit and Training and Processes. Secondly, we have Sarmishta Mitra, who is the Chief Learning Officer at Axis Bank. We will also have Mr. Karthik Mola, who is the CEO of Inspire One Technologies. I welcome all the panelists and the attendees to the virtual panel discussion. Over to you, Karthik. Karthik, 1 second. I think you are self-muted. So can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
Thanks, Anmol. Hopefully, I'm audible now for everybody. Great. Okay, I can also see Sharmishta. So again, on behalf of Sharmishta and myself, and Shilpi, who will be joining us soon, a very warm welcome to all of you. Really appreciate everyone's time to join us for today's virtual panel discussion, one of probably many that we'll be having over the period of time. And I'm sure we'll get some really interesting points of view, both from Shilpi and Sharmishta as vanguards from the banking industry. So Sharmishta, firstly, thank you for joining. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you, and pleasure is equally mine.
Yes, I think if you were to probably look back maybe a little less than 2 months ago, it would have probably been possible that for most industries, Sharmishta, work from home as a concept at best could have been either an exception and at worst maybe a somewhat laughable idea. But here we are, living and breathing a work from home scenario, and for better or worse, trying to make the most of it. So I'm going to kick off a question to you, Sharmishta, which I'm sure is in some way on everyone's mind. And then I'll also request my fellow audience to keep asking us questions using the questions feature on GoToWebinar, and I'll keep picking them up as we go along. But Sharmishta, the first question is really a question of basic principles here about accessibility and availability. How do you define a regular work from home hour? What is within work from home and outside of work from home as far as work hours are concerned? And how do you also ensure that people are showing up to work? I think it'd be good just to start on an easy question first and foremost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So so there are a lot of discoveries. We are also being a very large bank. So some of the ways, of course, as far as we are concerned right now, there are many teams in the bank which is really working 18/7, which is working 19/7, and people are really on the roll. There are some roles, as they have to still step out and they have to go to the branches and manage. We of course have technology is playing an exceptionally critical role for us. So right from having, for example, 250 people on Microsoft Teams, we are currently almost 72,000 of us who are already on Microsoft Teams. for example. Then we also have a One Access app, which we use for attendance, etc. So again, a very large number of close to the entire bank now is on one that we had a little bit of struggle to make it a way of life till about a couple of weeks back. So, and of course, we have VPN access, and then we, of course, log on to our emails. So as far as, the frontline is concerned, what we've really done is we've really managed to manage their days well. So there is a plan when there is a connect that we are having. So they are having their regular drills with the customer connect for servicing as well as other conversations. Then they also have time when they continue to go ahead and do their CRM and so on and so forth. So the front line is a large number. There's a rhythm and rigor that we have set in, and many of those rhythm and rigor is also managed through technology. So that's one way. The other way really is the way of really having the morning huddle, and if every manager everywhere in the country is getting into a morning huddle and taking stock of how the day sort of is supposed to look like, what are the plans of the day, and usually ended up with a evening huddle, and that's essentially on certain tasks which people are delivering on, and the goals of the day which also needs to be met. So as far as we feel right now, we have really come closer, and we are doing multiple conversations by senior leaders across the bank. And what we hear from people, actually people are feeling closer and more bonded, as if we know more about each other than we would have known in a regular day.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, that's really interesting to hear. So a few key words or points that I picked up. One, which you said is you have an underlying technology process in place which helps everyone to come on board, and one which is secure. If I heard the words VPN and the One Access app that everyone has accessibility to. And I think as far as workflow is concerned, you were mentioning that every manager has to ensure that there's a daily huddle with his or her team, which is obviously no easy task considering the sheer size, diversity, and spread of your workforce. And also not to mention that a bank like Axis has an equally large wholesale banking arm as well as a retail arm. So, so that's really interesting to hear. I'm going to possibly jump to the employee lifecycle and try to ask you some questions from that vis-a-vis work from home, Sharmishta. So again, notably banks like Axis Bank, like Kotak Bank, and like many institutions or companies that our fellow colleagues represent, there is constantly an inflow of new joinees that come onto the bank, right? On a almost daily basis, sometimes even more often now. How are you engaging with these new joinees of the bank who are coming on board to your institution in a very, very, very different time, right? With completely a virtual interface to every aspect of the bank. And I also want to take this point to welcome Shilpi on board. So I'll ask you the question first, Sharmishta, and then contrast what you have to say with what Shilpi has to also say.
Yeah. So, what we have done is we've done, of course, two things. We have really staggered the joining, and wherever we had, of course, given out an offer letter, we are going ahead and hiring them, but we're staggering the joining. So that's one thing that we're doing. The other thing that we have not stopped hiring, we are hiring for important roles and critical roles, and certainly some roles we are realizing are becoming very critical, even as what we call is the new normal. So we are continuing to hire for those roles, but we are definitely prioritizing. And once they are joining in, so, this is what at times when you do in good times, is helpful for us in the not so good times. So we already actually had started working on a virtual onboarding and induction process. And that process sort of continues for us. And that's really helping us in good stead to manage, the current situation fairly well. We also go ahead and take feedback from the people who are joining in terms of their joining experience. And we are saying it should not fall between 4.5 and below. The other few things that we are doing. So we have actually put together a team which essentially reaches out and talks to the new joinees of the bank and to understand if they're safe in every way. Some of the frontliners are also paying guests. Some of them also have their, staying away from family. So we have a reach out program, which we have institutionalized, and the HR, the line leaders and all actually reach out to people existing as well as new joinees as a special focus. And the third thing that we are doing is, values is very, very important for us. So we also have about 1,000 senior leaders of bank who are acts as value realizers. They are also constantly interacting with the new joinees along with the existing employees. So we again have a special focus for the new join, and in a way, as I said, that people are feeling more bonded. If you ask me, I have a feeling that maybe we are doing even tad better with our new joinees because we are more structured and more people are reaching out, and maybe slightly better than what we would in a normal situation. Who knows? Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, I think once enough time has passed, perhaps there can be an equal weightage to figure out whether the usual onboarding pre-lockdown and pre-work from home was working just as well, if not, worse than the current situation that you're in. But what I find very interesting is that just today there was also another, financial services firm in the insurance space that glorified how they do onboarding in a digital manner, especially in a situation like today where a new joinee can't formally be introduced by the organization and its leaders. So very interesting points of view there, Sharmishta. I'm sure things for everyone over here to pick up. Shilpi, firstly, again, welcome. Good to have you amongst us. How does this compare with your views at Kotak Bank and what you are seeing in terms of best practices for onboarding new hires at this stage? Shilpi, I'm not sure. You might have made the same mistake as I. You might be on self-mute. So you might have to go to the panel and just unmute yourself.
Yeah, all right. I think I've done that now. Thanks, Kante. Right, so onboarding continues for roles, and we are welcoming our new joinees from the work from home mode, and that has been effectively handled by HR. So people continue to join. We are engaging with them at the leadership level, similar to what Karmishta has just shared with all of us. So we are all sailing together in the same direction, and I think that's exciting times. It is giving us this opportunity as well to people in other roles in the work from home mode, because we have dedicated training hours that we spend with our existing employees as well as the new joinees. So I think there's a lot of structure to the entire flow for a new joining employees.
Interesting. And on that note, if I can ask you to continue, Shilpi, I think in today's day and age, what a lot of leaders are struggling is trying to figure out just how A, engaged, and B, busy, if I can use that word, is the workforce when it comes to dealing with and interacting with customers, especially now that everything is happening in a virtual environment. How and in what way are you seeing your bank and other companies taking advantage of this virtual setup and ensuring that interactions with customers continue unabated? And to your point, what new skills are they learning to ensure that happens well?
So I think most organizations have their CRMs on the mobile. So employees are independent of work from office. They're able to connect with their customers very successfully. And so I think it's not being so much of an impediment in their interactions with their customers.
Okay. And do you see any new skills emerging for, let's say, the RMs and the CSMs in terms of how they need to interact with customers in now a more or less virtual world?
I think with today's environment, there's a lot of connect with the customers in the virtual environment as well, because the interaction is based now on concern. Asking about the safety, security of the customers and how safe they are, etc. So I think it's that's the new skill that everybody is learning in terms of the personal connect with customers.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I think that's an important point for sure, because most companies don't want this opportunity to go missed out. And I think if you speak to various business leaders, some of them already have uh, a paradigm or a view that we've effectively missed the first quarter with whatever is going on. But yet there is, I think, from what you're saying, still a golden opportunity to capitalize and reach customers and engage with them in ways that were perhaps previously not possible, or if they were, we just weren't bold enough to take those steps. Sharmishta, how about you? So you've shared a lot about getting all the infrastructure in place along with the processes to make sure that this is a well-oiled machine for your workforce. Now comes the million-dollar question: that how do they ultimately go to the field, virtually of course, and interact with customers? So two questions: are you seeing customers take to this form of interaction well? And if not, what could be your take on skills and competencies that the workforce needs to be enabled on?
Yeah. So, we do see from the time that in the first week, of course, there was this thing that customers themselves are so anxious that it is they're just sort of, it was difficult, not easy for our people also to connect. But then we also calm down as a system in terms of refocusing and saying where we should start. So what we said is, what we also stand for. Service is, of course, our forte as a bank. So we said, first, let's reach out with service calls. So we have a digital banking, we have a digital banking product, digital services available. So that's how we first, found the cohorts of customers who may be, needing the service a lot more, like the senior citizens or the NRI customers and so on and so forth. Then we again define new cohorts of customers as we started becoming, if I may say, more matured in this process. Set of customers who possibly have the wherewithal and also, want to seize this opportunity. Then we figured out from our experience who they are, and then we started interacting with them. And then we also looked at the cohort who has the, wherewithal, but are slightly, confused and needs help. So that's the second cohort we reached out to. So we also started, sort of segmenting our customers and taking those prioritization, if I may, when it came to really the business continuity, as we call it. But for the rest, we were very, very mindful that we have to first enable them to be able to operate digitally from home. At the same time, the senior citizens, if they need special help, we will go out and give them that. So that was one. In terms of the skilling, yes, in a big way. So we are really investing at this point in time as we are talking in terms of reskilling our relationship managers, as well as our, the frontline sales force, as well as our, customer service, because in our bank, they also sell as well. We are really investing a lot into be able to in something that we call virtual, relationship management, and we are breaking that up into subparts. We have looked at the customers' demographics. We're looking at the psychographics, the 4 or 5 psychographics, from anxiety to really committing to taking the next steps. So what are the various steps? So we are also doing, scripting of calls. We are looking success measures when you move from step one to step 2. And really training people on that. That's on the process side. Also, and how do you call and how do you connect, how do you converse, how do you close? And how do you also assess where which psychographic the customer is, and hence how the nature of your conversation should be or could be. The other area that we're also focusing on, we realize your tonality and your, etc. is becoming very important. So we're really focusing on making them a little bit more voice trained, so that when you hear and you hear well, even on the way to write emails and reach out in this time, we are retraining them on that. So there is a detailed module that we're really rolling out in which we call virtual relationship management, with a lot of detailed psychographics and demographics. The other thing that we are also doing is across the bank, we are strengthening the financial advisory skills, because there are lots happening, as we know. And finance, as we know in Maslow's, is one of the most important things that people need to feel stable and secured about. So we are really stepping up and investing in gearing up the bank in that direction. We are also using this opportunity to train even their skip level managers and their own managers. And they are actually stepping in as leaders, as teachers, because the large workforce, if you have to train, you have to invest time, and you have to also do train the trainers. So for us, it's helping us in multiple ways, because we are really getting a large cohort of people in the game now, and people are not only directing and guiding, the leaders are really participating, training, coaching, understanding their banks, and collectively, finding solutions. So yes, it's a great opportunity with digital banking, with virtual relationship management, as well as leaders as teachers are some of the things, and financial advisory skills we are strengthening, or some, if I may, adding new skills. That's for the front line. Even for the leadership, how to lead in crisis, how to manage a digital workforce, how to become data smart leaders in analytics, because we do recognize work from home is going to be a norm for a few more months. So again, these were things that we planned, even if they're normal, that we had to do this. So that's coming in handy. But yes, a lot of work across levels to really get this on board for people who are not physically available with us anymore. But yes, a great opportunity to step up and get ready for the new normal.
Yeah. I think thank you so much for categorizing the points that you mentioned. I think at a first glance, it seems very overwhelming when you put it in context to the fact that this is happening across the bank, and that too happening without any physical touch point, as is the case right now for everybody. I think what's also reassuring, perhaps at a consumer level, is that both banks are doubling down on investing in reskilling, especially if you look at even financial advisory, which if the news of, let's say, yesterday and today on oil prices is anything to go by, is only going to lead to more shock and confusion for people in terms of where to park their wealth in the near term and in the middle term. So really interesting points there, Sharmishta and Shilpi. Thank you. I'm going to throw open a question for both of you, and it's, I think, a question on everyone's mind. It's actually come from a colleague on the webinar today, which is I think even more important to figure out. That in a work from home scenario, what are companies, and if you'd like your banks, doing to really manage performance and ensure that workforce productivity, if not decreases, at least plateaus to what it was during the pre-lockdown situation? So I'll throw it open in case anyone wants to venture and answer that question first.
Yeah, so I can start. So a great question. So I think, this is a time, we use productivity and performance pretty much in the same breath, and usually we used to, but now we realize actually they're not the same things. So what I mean by that, so we are definitely seeing, some of the productivity measures definitely going up. People are being able to attend to, let's say, more calls. People are being able to turnaround times are decreasing. The service deliveries are coming in place together. So there seems to be, an increase in productivity. However, the same may not be true for performance if you really talk about business results, etc. So have we really rehashed what should our target be at this point in time, and to be able to measure that? Are we, what should that right target be in terms of performance measures? So that's still work in progress. So a lot of work has started, but that's still work in progress. So performance, it's very hard at this point in time to really comment on. Of course, what we are seeing is, some definitely there are people and there are individuals who are rising to the occasion and either continuing to deliver, or there are new surprises in terms of people who are coming and delivering. But overall, to be able to really say how well are we performing, because we don't even know what the measures are. But productivity, is something that is surely, is in a good place at this point in time. If I have to answer that, and that's because, like Shilpi also mentioned, the technology support, the learning, the upskilling, the leaders connect, and everything else is also helping. We have also launched an initiative called Stay Positive, where we also involve their families. So bringing all of these things, we are making them feel bonded and connected, feel the warmth and care. At the same time, putting a rhythm and rigor on a daily basis so that there is customer connect and also upskilling happening. So combination of various factors and the connectivity is helping people. Maybe on the productivity we are doing good, but on performance, really can't say. We are yet to announce what the performance benchmarks are and what are the expectations. So once that starts coming in, we will be able to answer that even better.
Right, right. No, I think it's a very authentic input, I guess, because what I hear you say, Sharmishta, is that productivity-wise, you don't really see too much of a change. If anything, things are perhaps increasing month on month. But performance, like you're rightly saying, is also a lag, and hence you will really know the true picture a few months down the road. But there is no let up in either the bank's input as well as in the workforce of the bank in terms of still making it happen one way or another, which is, I think, really heartening for everyone to hear. Shilpi, what about from your perspective as a leader in the space? What would your advice to companies be in terms of managing performance, managing productivity when you can't unfortunately meet people face to face? What should we be doing?
Actually, this is this is the time for us to explore new ways of connecting with our customers, and I'm sure all organizations are working towards in that direction. So it is about taking this is an opportunity. It's not a problem. So I think it's how you explore, and we have great support from technology. So explore, exploit technology, connect with your customers. Your customers are happy to engage with you because this is the now new norm. And this is the new normal, connecting with each other. So I think you will get companies and organization investing in technology will get favorable responses from customers as well, and that's the way to go. We've been just shown a new world of connecting with our customers, and we need to use this opportunity.
Right. Do you also see on that note, Shilpi, a lot of education to take place on the customer end to get them up to speed on the same technology platforms as well? So one is getting the workforce attuned to it, but you see the same also now an imperative for companies to invest to get customers on board?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the customers are very much there. Yes, you may have a bit of a challenge on your senior citizen customers, but they are happy to engage even on the phone today. It's about how you get across the products to them, which there are ways and methods which companies are using now, banks, other institutions, to even get the product sales done through different segments of customers digitally.
Right. That's really interesting. And actually, I think another question from our fellow colleagues is on the topic of training. So everyone knows that training has now gone on to overdrive or hyperdrive in a way as a key impediment or a key way in enabling the workforce now. Not just for want of time, but for making sure that we capitalize on the new opportunity. Given that everything is again happening virtual, one question which our colleagues want to understand is what new methodologies of training do you see working well, with perhaps emphasis more on the front line, given that that's where most of the attrition happens, most of the hiring happens, and those are the face of the companies that we all belong to. So any thoughts and views on that?
Yeah, so I think the front line is very accustomed to learning now on the mobile digitally. Most organizations have mobile learning apps now. So I think engaging with the front line through various courses, discussion forums online is actually taking skilling in a different direction. And Sharmishta very rightly mentioned about how the leaders are becoming teachers. And that is actually supplementing the efforts of the L&D functions in most organizations. And learning is now taking a very practical approach, with leaders being there as trainers. So there's a lot of application-based learning which is benefiting the frontline.
Interesting. Sharmishta, what about your views on this? And if I can just extend the question to one more thing, how are you seeing L&D leaders also needing to retool themselves or reskill themselves to adjust to this new way of training and enablement?
Yeah, so I think many things. Right? So I think the most important thing that is being required of L&D leaders, as we also talk about it in our bank, little bit our internal banter. So we said, okay, there's one part of HR which is really ensuring that the operations and the safety and security of employees are in place. And there is another part which is a learning, which is really an opportunity for it to really handle the culture and the transformation. So I think this in itself is a big shift. Some of us who, of course, have done business roles and have also done consulting roles and have also done, the broad-based HR roles. Those are some of the things which then would be very, very important for the L&D leads or heads to really have it handy, right? Only a specialist hat in this scenario is unlikely to work. So because you have to think strategically, you have to connect with the businesses, you're responsible for business continuity. I think the tremendous focus on L&D, and you realize you have to get the machinery from brick and mortar to tech. Then you suddenly discover, if I have to do this, then I have to take care of these elements as well at the same time. So it is technology, it is bridging with people, it is having meaningful conversations with business leaders to ensure what you are putting up is also palatable and important for people. So I think so multiple skills, are right from strategic skill, thinking skills, to understanding business, to be able to influence, interpersonal skills, understanding tech, understanding digital content, getting our teams up to speed, your own leadership style. I mean, you are being challenged on every front at this point in time. And like Shilpi mentioned, again, it's a great opportunity to harness, to demonstrate if you have those skills and really serve the organization in these moments of crisis. Feel for your people, deliver for them, because you can see what the last mile needs. And wherever you recognize that of all this entire range of skills that is being called for, how do you really quickly adapt and change some of the styles and reskill yourself. So for example, I find myself spending my day on understanding Microsoft Teams, the nitty-gritties of it, the live events, how do you manage. I see myself doing many more things with my own hands despite having a larger team. I see myself getting much deeper to understand how do you and have more conversations with many people, that even how do you get even the learning management system work. I see myself interacting with my marketing teams to say, how do I communicate, reach to our customers and our people and help them to reach to our customers. I see myself having conversation with the communication teams to say, how do I communicate and manage whatever I'm promising I'm going to do. So all that, and very importantly, inspire the employees who are also working hard. The frontline is where we are wanting them to upskill, and they are the ones who are also the ones who really has to continue the business, the bread and butter winners. So how do you really inspire and engage with them to really get to see what you're doing? Is it really meaningful for them? So as I say, the 18 by 7 is 18 by 7 or 19 by 7 is the norm because of multiple skills expectations. Some you're already fine with, some you need to build on, and some you need to sharpen, and some you didn't even know that you are expected to work on. So those are also coming up. So yeah, a lot is expected, but fun times.
Right, right. So in a nutshell, one L&D professionals should expect themselves to be pulled and pushed in multiple directions. And I think, Sharmishta, you unofficially gave the work hours also as 18 to 19 hours, 7 days a week as the new norm. So I think we'll all probably sweat a bit or two on that. But here's an interesting statement that was made by a very well-known sales leader globally. He said that we're today witnessing one of the biggest movement towards inside sales that the working workforce has seen across industries. And effectively, just to break it down, it means from selling on the field, you're now selling remotely. And as a result, the research also goes to say that in the next 3 months to 6 months, depending on how long this work from home scenario stays its course, organizations can see a huge growth in data on how their workforce is performing, learning, operating, and whatnot. That means that you're effectively going to get dumped, if I can say, with lots of data that perhaps your teams were not ready to expect, let alone analyze. How do you see that helping your cause? Because I hear both of you say that digital technologies, digital methodologies are what will help companies steer the course in this environment. But how do you ensure that the workforce and your teams are being able to analyze that data? Because that's probably coming your way next.
Yeah, Shilpi, you want to take that first? Because I just spoke so much.
Yeah, so I think when one is receiving the data, it is being received to the extent that you need to receive, and you can.
Sorry, Shilpi, I think we lost you back there. I don't know if you can hear us, or if you can hear me rather. I think you're back online, Shilpi.
Was I audible?
Yes, you are audible now. Please carry on.
All right. Yeah, so I said, I think, when you talk about data, everybody is getting that much that they can consume and hence and absorb. So I don't think there would be ever an overload of data or information. It's all about seeing the data maybe differently, and it is some time that they will take to adapt to. So luckily, humans adapt very fast. We're adapting in 30 days to this new way of work from home. We never thought that we would sometimes always challenge and say, no, how can that even work? It's so disturbing. But we've all found a method to it. And I am sure the workforce will also find the method to the data, and analyzing and looking at it and understanding it and interpreting it. So it's all about how you get tuned to the new norm and to the new normal, which is something that all leaders are working
on. Right. Thanks, Shilpi. Sharmishta, would you like to build on that or even counter?
No, definitely nothing, nothing to counter. So, for example, to give a real life example, again, some of these things, I think most organizations which are very large in size had seen coming. So we had, for example, already requisitioned for a data scientist. And I was talking to my MD the other day, and I said, yes, we're going ahead and hiring that person. And I just did a call with a data scientist yesterday for our team, and absolutely an apt question. So what we realize is when we have the LMS, there will be now a lot of data which will come to us. The next thing for us is to do a proper data warehousing and data modeling. And then the third is really to be able to use the AI and machine learning to make it count, for our people and for our employees. luckily for us, and I think this was even our earlier CEO, she had really looked at, analytics, or it's actually a business unit. And many of our business decisions in the growth phase of the bank really leveraged first data, from an analytical perspective. And then we also really looked at, is our strategy valid, or we need to look at certain things differently, so on and so forth. So now, since that's somewhat, a DNA of the bank, it's helping us, because the way we look at, so we say get some information from learning, then we get inputs from two more sources, the CRM as well as the BIU, as we call it, our analyst function, where they actually capture individual wise data, whichever cut you want, be it on products, be it on targets, be it on delivery, be it on service, whichever. And then currently, we are really working on and using this time to really get our data modeling, organize the data well, to be able to then leverage data science tools and techniques to be able to do two things in the new normal and also currently, that what are those actions and behaviors and outcomes that we are seeing, whether it's in CRM or it's learning or in performance behaviors, which is helping people to perform better. Is there a pattern? And where are the strengths of individuals which we can leverage? And very importantly, what are the gaps which are emerging from these multiple sources? Because the analytics helps us to go down the last mile and the last at an individual level, and then pull it back to a little bit of hyper personalization wherever it is required, and or otherwise a cohort based or a personalized approach. So we do look at what are the top products which is being sold at that point in time. We look at few other like 64 variables to be able to see how what really does mean for an individual. To find that's all complex backend, but a simple front end. But while that's already been happening, from the learning context, we are now linking these two or three things along with a little bit of recognition, so that we are being able to deliver eventually what learning exists for in the bank, which is performance, productivity, and change in behaviors. And analytics is a big one, and hence to summarize, I just had a chat, interview with data scientist, and putting that team in place right now.
Right.
And even for the rest of the bank, as I talked about in the beginning, one of the important skills is being data smart leaders is again very, very important, because only one BIU or one or two business functions just doing it in a central office is not good enough. One needs to understand how to read, how to interpret, how to analyze, and how to take decisions and support some of the services even better, which is being provided to them, and also analyze what does their business need to do differently, which they need to then do to the world outside. So those really are important steps we recognize as a bank we need to take now. But this we are strengthening now over the next 2 to 3 months.
Interesting. It's I think possibly past due that for a long time analytics in the HR space was more lip service than actual work, but now I think that's going to completely get overhauled in most organizations, given the wealth of data that is going to come their way. And I think Shruti is also right in saying that you have to still have the skills and wherewithal to look at data as true data as opposed to noise, to also really come up with the right inferences. Okay, I have one last question which has come from the audience, which I think is also a question more on, what are the challenges that you're facing, which perhaps you feel organizations don't have answers to, and is a work in progress in this work from home scenario. And I'll also add a second part to it, which is both organizations and others in this session today have a fairly large dispersed workforce, which is not part of their on-roll staff, but they're equally critical to achieve your revenue, your plans. How are you engaging with them, and what challenges do you find with that?
So I think the manual
Yes, Shilpi, carry on.
Yeah, so I said engagement is happening across, the board. It's, whether it's your own role or your outsourced people, engagement is happening as with every team member with the same intensity, right, and the same focus. So there is no discrimination there in terms of engagement. Challenges today continue to be adapting to this format of uh, and ensuring that your team stay motivated, engaged during this time, and continue to keep the focus on the deliverables that one has to achieve. That doesn't change.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what you're saying is, one, you've not really seen organizations struggle with engagement more or less for the outsourced workforce as they are for the rest of the workforce. And I think what you're saying is, while enough is being done to engage and enable the workforce, there is still a lot more that can be done, given that you just don't know what the situation is that people are coping with, both on the personal front as well as on the professional front. And more so because in work from home, the lines are blurring even more. Did I get that correct?
Yeah, because we still don't know how long this is going to be. So there is an element of anxiety that everybody is, living each day with. And I think that's where the challenges are. And I'm sure most organizations and all organizations are learning to cope and come up with new ways to deal with this and to keep the, workforce positive.
Right. So Shilpi, just one last point of view for you. How long is your view on, whether work from home will continue for the next quarter, or do you see this as a long-term shift in behavior for organizations to take note of?
I think we'll have to take it day by day, Karthik. It won't, we'll just have to live each day and see how this shapes up and into the future.
Right, right. I think we've just uncovered your risk profile as a prudent investor with that statement. So thanks, thanks, Shruti. Sharmisha, over to you. What is your view on this question of challenges that companies face and questions you've still not answered from work from home? And lastly, how long do you see this continuing?
Yeah, so I think yes, there is a little bit of black box. It would be not prudent to say that we've all found answers. Yes, everyone is trying everything that is possible. If you ask me, the next 2 weeks is going to be very telling on that. It will really tell us, what's working, what's not working. So, for example, I was listening to a webinar from McKinsey and which was happening with McKinsey and someone from Harvard had sent it to us. And, a very pertinent point was being made, and that sort of stayed with me. They're saying, even before the work from home phenomena happened, it seems 980 million women across the world used to be, used to report physical abuse, and this is coming from the Western world, from the US and Europe. And so as people are living in close proximity, as they are sort of dealing with each other in a manner that they were not used to, etc. So there is a lot of stress and tension, and if you see many people in large cities like Bombay, they also stay in smaller houses. Some are possibly locked up, all alone, etc. in a city and can't go out. So all of these things, we have to really wait and watch to say, how does it manifest? What is it really leading to? So it's really hard at this point in time. The next 2 weeks is going to be more telltale, but some reports that are coming in that some of these numbers are also rising of anxiety, like Shilpi talked about, or maybe other stress that happens when people are together and they just don't have any other vent if they already were not very tightly bonded. So those things are happening, and what role governments play, what role organizations play, what role leaders play, what role HR plays. We all have to constantly step up the game, but first understand it a little bit more deeply. And we possibly are just getting the foundation right, and we'll have to step up. So a lot more learnings to come through. While the intent is great, the impact of it, we are yet to fully understand and fathom. On the work from home, yes, for us, we have accepted it as a new normal. And we are even making plans to say, even when things are in, so we are breaking it up into 4 phases. Phase 1, what we're going through now, phase 2, phase 3, and also a steady state. And even in the steady state, we would continue to have work from home as a way of life. That decision has already been taken and in a way signed off.
Very interesting food for thought from both of you. I think we're also with that just on the border of overlapping our time. So Sharmishta and Shilpi, firstly, thank you so much for taking the time and answering some of these questions that I and I'm sure a lot of our colleagues on this webinar struggle to answer at night, day on day. And I also want to thank our colleagues who've made it on time for being part of this entire session and asked us some very penetrating questions. Hopefully, you've got some of these questions answered at least to a level where you can think about them further and act on them. I'm sure Sharmishta and Shilpi will also be equally happy to engage with you offline, either through LinkedIn or whatever mode be it. So thank you again. Just to let you know, the webinar has been recorded and the link shall be sent to all of you to further investigate or reflect if you'd like. And we hope to see you again soon. Shilpi and Sharmishta, thank you again. And lastly, please stay safe and continue work from home.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks. It was
Bye.
a pleasure. Thanks, Shilpi. Thanks, team. Thanks, everyone, for joining in. Thank you.
Thank you.
No,
Thank
the
you.
best. Thanks.
Yes,
Bye.
absolutely. Thank you.
Stay safe, stay positive. বাবু, মামা, খিদে প্রচন্ড।